Good morning, everybody, and thank you for logging in and attending today's training for modulation for the modern age. We'll be getting started right now. Anybody that comes in a little late, that's perfectly okay. Everybody will be listed on mute for this call. We will open up the lines for sections available for questions. You can raise your hand. Even better yet, you can type your question in, since some people are using microphones. And during that time, I will read the questions and we will be able to get them answered. My name is Troy Barron, and I'll be your host for today. I am the National Sales Manager here for Channel Vision. I have been in the industry for a little while, so just a little bit about me. I've done both retail, installation, distribution, and now working with the manufacturer, so I can certainly offer some perspective and certainly be able to help you guys out in any applications that you might need. Now, today's kind of a special presentation because we're talking about modulation. And for those of you who don't know about channel vision technology, 18 years ago, the Modulator was the first product that we manufactured. If you're not familiar with the rest of the channel vision product line, we do offer a full line of products, over 800 products, over 700 products to be specific, in 8 different categories, including Channel Vision Central, our structured wiring product line, with everything for the connected home, as well as IR control solutions, our high-performance audio line with our ARIA audio and speaker products, as well as offering an A-bus solution for multi-room audio, which is, again, audio and power over Cat5, whole house intercoms, as well as surveillance solutions, and channel vision exclusive technology, which we'll be talking a little bit about today. Now, we're going to go over a few different things today. First, we're going to start with some of the fundamentals of modulation, learning the infrastructure that's required to be able to complete an installation job with CCTV using modulation. We will review some of the product specifications of the said products required to be able to modulate your video signals. We will go into digital modulation and why it's different than the way you're used to, and talk a little bit about some systems design for a few specific applications. Now, this training is not going to take up your whole day. We'll probably spend about 45 minutes or so going through some of these applications, depending on the questions you have. With that being said, we talked about fundamentals of modulation, and that's where we're going to start. And it all begins with RF splitters. There is a difference between channel vision splitters and the competition. All of channel vision splitters are PCB printed circuit board, which means less noise than any of the competitors available out there, which translates into better picture quality. Also, all of channel vision splitters, you'll see the term here, an HS splitter. That implies it's a hybrid splitter, which means you can take your digital cable signal in and split it to 2 locations. The term hybrid splitter implies that it's also a combiner, where you can receive your signals in and send them to 1 location as well. So all of channel vision splitters are also combiners. Taking a closer look at channel vision central in the splitter category, all of channel vision splitters are 5 megahertz to 1,000 megahertz, offering 1 gig passing. All the channel vision splitters are IR and DC passing. This is a very important feature when doing modulation, IR distribution, or video distribution for that matter, ensuring that you have a high-quality splitter that is IR and DC passing. The PCB RF distribution design, which our circuit boards are utilizing inside our splitters, do enable us to have some of the lowest audible noise in the industry, with dual functionality and port-to-port isolation, being compatible with HD TV, digital TV, and the like. Certainly offers you a high-quality product design that is available in a passive solution from 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, up to 16 way of distribution. Now, if you do need a little more power to go with your system, we do offer standalone amplifiers as well as amplifiers with splitters combined. And these can be utilized in a variety of different applications. including some of our new units which are compatible with Verizon Fios as well. Now to take a look at modulation. First question you may ask is, why would I need a modulator anyways? And the technical answer is that a modulator is used to allow several CCTV cameras or video signals to be distributed over one coax by placing each of them on a separate television channel. Without a modulator, only one video signal can occupy the coax at a time. For your choice of modulators, we'll begin with the E-Series, the E1200 to be specific. This is a single input modulator, perfect for a DVR application or a single camera application. You can have a 25 dB output and modulation on the spectrum, cable TV spectrum, from 65 to 135. With a single push button selector to change your channel and non-volatile memory which is unaffected by brownouts, this is a cost-effective solution to distribute video from one source. If you have more than one source, the E-Series modulator is the way to go. Here you can get available in 2, 3, or 4 inputs. One of the unique things about Channel Vision's modulator series from the E-Series is that all of these units support IR control. Now we'll take a closer look at why that is relevant and how that may be able to help in a few slides coming up. But they also are going to support up to 8 4100 IR over coax adapters. They also have IR emitter outputs, the LED display so you can visually see your channel, a level adjustment to improve your picture quality, and works on a wide range of spectrums from UHF all the way up to the cable TV spectrum. Again, with a non-volatile memory and a push-button selector, these modulators are virtually bulletproof. If you're using a distribution system inside a structured wiring enclosure, we have a solution for that as well. You'll note that these are similar modulators with a slightly different part number. In case you haven't noticed the theme here, CVC stands for Channel Vision Central. And if any of our products starts with a C, that implies it will mount inside of our structured wiring enclosure without any snafus. Now let's take a closer look at the E-Series modulator. If you're looking at the front of the E-Series modulator, you'll be able to see your model number, either 2200, 3200, or 4200 IR series. Be able to select your sources based on what you plug in on the back via A, B, C, or D. To select your source, simply press the selector up and down for your channel option to assign your specific channels. If you turn around the modulator, it'll look something like this. And then here you'll have a couple different options for your settings and for your systems. Your dip switches will be located here. This will be the first thing that you'll want to make note of when setting up your modulator. The settings will vary depending on what application you're utilizing, whether you're using the cable spectrum, customer just has a television with an antenna tuner, or cable and antenna. It's up to you. Typically the most common application that you're going to find nowadays is this cable spectrum right here, utilizing this setting, and that's because the ATSC tuners that are built into the televisions now can decode both antenna and cable automatically. Continuing on the back of that E-Series modulator, you also have an IR port. Now, why do I care about the IR port? Well, an IR system is comprised of 3 different elements: the receiver, the hub, and the flasher. The receiver, the hub, and the flasher at all times. Basically, the hub portion of an IR system is built into the E-Series modulator with your IR outputs, which you can connect either a single emitter to control a single device, and just simply installs over your AV equipment, such as your receiver, your DVD player, or your CCTV DVR. If you have more than one equipment, you can use the dual-headed flasher. The E-Series modulator will allow you to control your equipment from a remote location. Now, we talked about needing 3 elements for an IR system, and that includes the receiver, the hub, and the flasher. Here we have the hub, here we have the flashers. So what would we use for a receiver in this application? We're talking about using a coax system. Well, in that instance, you would use the IR 4101 IR over coax adapter. This is a nice little unit here because this has a mini remote head receiver with 3 different mounting options, which will allow you to put this at your television location and control your equipment that you put in your enclosure, in the basement, or in an alternative location. Live in effect, we would look something like this. Your television would have a single coax run to the house from the television, integrate the IR receiver between the modulator, and then you would be able to control the equipment with the remote control from your DVR. Now I could control my playback, viewing, menu options, and everything from the comfort of my Lazy Boy recliner chair. Now, there are 2 rules essentially that we want to state with you when we're talking about modulation itself. The first is if you're doing a multi-room modulation system using an IR system. The first thing is going to be one of the most important. If you're connecting your modulator, you need to make sure that you have a DC passing splitter. When utilizing an IR system, you need to have a DC or IR passing system splitter in place to be able to control your equipment. If you're not using a channel vision splitter, cannot guarantee you that it's going to be IR DC passing. Also, ensure to enclose DC blocks on the unused ports. Otherwise, the FCC may knock on your door and give you a cease and desist order regarding your cable system. And nobody wants to deal with that. One of the most important elements when designing a system is balancing your system. You cannot combine a modulated signal with a cable signal unless they are balanced. Otherwise, you will have a poor picture quality. Now, for us math connoisseurs out here, the dB output, decibel output from your channel vision modulator is 25 dB, and my cable is coming in at 15 dB. So for me to balance that, I would have to add an attenuator, which would then reduce the amount of output from my modulator so that I can combine the signals at a level playing field to produce a high quality image on the television. Now we're going to take a intermission real quick and see if we have any questions regarding some of the basics and the fundamentals we talked about for modulation before we get into some additional solutions. So let me check the board for a few questions, and it'll just be 1 second. So far, it looks like everything's under control. With that being said, let's talk about the digital solution. Now, here's a look at the cable spectrum as we know it today, or once upon a time for that matter. Your basic analog channels would go up to channels approximately 78, and then everything above 78 to 135 would operate in the digital spectrum and reserved for digital cable. Our modulators from channel vision operate on channel 65 to 135 in relation to the cable spectrum. So the way we used to modulate, we would take a low-pass filter, such as a 3102-78, and eliminate all the channels above 78. And then we would insert our channels, watch our cameras, and integrate these on every other channel so that we could have up to 19 channels of modulation. But since digital cable's there in that spectrum now, we would have to use what's called a trap filter, which is designed to knock out a specific section of channels so that we could insert our channels in there. Now our cameras would still be visible and we would not be affecting the digital cable broadcast. Or we could just do a above the digital broadcast and be able to not modulate on some of the higher channels. However, now that the digital broadcast is taking up the higher spectrum, you can't use this filter, that filter, or any filter for that matter. If you think about the digital cable spectrum, including on-demand, pay-per-view, HD, on-screen guides, it's easy to see why you might not have as much room as you used to insert that channel. Now, if we were to remove one channel, we would eliminate a wide range of channels in the digital broadcast. As opposed to using a filter to just remove one channel, we would lose about 50. When your homeowner might not be too happy about that, even if they're not interested in the lifetime channel. So what if I told you I can modulate on digital cable without using any filters, any channel loss? I wouldn't have to run any new cables. I could give you a reason to visit all your old customers, and you could upsell older installs to your customers and make more money. Would you be interested? Well, I'm glad you are, because that's probably why you attended today's training. So let me introduce to you to the digital cable combiner, the Affinity Series. The Affinity Series allows you to integrate a modulated signal into a digital cable signal without using any filters or any channel loss. This will allow several modulated channels to be integrated with a full digital cable feed without filtering out any of the programming or losing your favorite channels. This unit also has a built-in IR repeating system, is very simple to install, and is operated via a simple remote control. To take a look at the anatomy of this device, we'll break it down. First here, you're going to have your cable input from the cable provider, CATV input. On the other side, you have a modulated input from your existing modulator or your Channel Vision Series modulator. RF output to be distributed to the rest of the televisions in the house, as well as an IR output for control. That seems pretty simple so far. What's included in this to make it work? Well, the included accessories include the remote control, the IR over coax adapter, and the power supply. For a basic application for distributing this to one television, this is what it would look like. You would have the digital cable signal coming in on your left side here from the cable provider. We're talking Comcast, Time Warner, Charter, any of the digital cable providers. And on this side, the input from your modulator. Utilizing the RF output to the television location, each television that wants to see the cameras or the modulated signal will need three things: remote control, the IR receiver, and a two-way splitter. People ask, well, what channel am I modulating on? Well, if I can't modulate on the digital cable spectrum because it's just too crowded, what this allows you to do is split the signal, going to the television's tuner and to the tuner of the cable box. We're actually modulating on channel 65 with our modulator just like we used to, except for we're modulating on the television's tuner, not the tuner of the cable box. Simply switch inputs and you can see your cameras. No need to run a second line, no need to use a filter or make things more complicated. Now you might say, well, that's great, Troy, if I only have one TV, but what if I want to see it on multiple TVs? Well, you have options in that case. one application for a multi-TV distribution system with the Affinity would look something like this. Same concept, modulator input, CATV input, and your output would go to a three-way splitter in this application. Now all three TVs can have access to my modulated signal with the simple push of a button, which is down here on this little remote control. Allows you to switch between your modulated signal and your digital cable signal. Now for those of you taking notes, you'll note that there's not a two-way splitter in this application, and that's because there's no cable boxes at these televisions. Therefore, I don't need one. Simply select the input on the modulator button, select the modulated feed, and it'll switch your digital cable signal and allow you to view your cameras. Basically, it's a switch. So how do I know what I'm going to need if I'm doing multiple TVs? Well, we're beginning to put together TV kits, and this might help you just memorize what you're going to need for each system. You'll need the IR over coax adapter 4101 for each television that wants to see the modulated signal. And that's required because that tells the cable combiner to switch between the modulated signal and the digital cable signal. And it knows how to switch by utilizing this remote control. And then we're dividing that signal going to the television's tuner and separate to the tuner of the cable box with this system right here with the two-way splitter. Now if you don't have a two-way splitter but you're utilizing Comcast or some manufacturer that does require what's called a DTA box or a digital to analog converter box, you can simply just bypass that with the modulator cable combiner just to step around that switch. Now, I will need each one of these devices for every television that wants to see the modulated signal. And don't worry, not a lot of money in this system here. Not going to cost you a lot of money. This little remote control can be programmed into any learning remote control. Simple two-button design. You can also program it into a universal remote control and use a macro and tell it to change inputs on the television at the same time. Or, well, keep it as a handy little device to manually select it with that. Retrofit applications are what we're talking about nowadays. In case anybody hasn't heard, the economy hasn't bounced back 100% yet if you read the news. But the good news is anybody that you ever sold a modulator to, you can make a sales call on. Anybody that you may have received a call from saying that they lost your cameras on their TV and you said, I can't help you right now, it's going to cost you $700 to run a new cable line to this location, or so on and so forth, you can make a call. Easily integrates with your existing infrastructure, working with any of the digital cable providers, excluding Verizon Fios, and allows you to have no new wires. That's the magic here, using the existing coax to solve a problem. Now I can tell you from experience here at Channel Vision, we do get multiple calls every single day. It actually kind of scares some people when they say, I'm calling you because I was told that you can help. Like a fortune teller, I read their mind and say, let me guess, you want to modulate on digital cable? And they say, how'd you know? Well, they wouldn't be the first person that called today. To recap this version of the Affinity Cable Combiner, this is a single switch. Great for modulating on one TV. However, the detail is that if you switch one television set using this system, all the televisions would be seeing the modulated signal. I'll repeat that. Utilizing this setup, the way we designed it earlier, one TV will see, as soon as you switch the input, all the televisions will see the modulated signal, or all the televisions will see the digital cable signal. That's the detail with this system. And as noted, includes the power supply, the remote control, and the IR adapter. Now you might be thinking, Troy, that's not acceptable. What if my customer's watching the football game and the missus wants to see who's at the front door? Is he going to interrupt his football game? He doesn't have to. by utilizing the P0328 cable combiner. This is a 3x8 cable combiner. It offers individual control. So let's take a closer look at this. This does enable modulation with digital cable without using filters, supports 2 modulated inputs as opposed to 1, allows you to have 8 television outputs, individual legs. Also has IR repeating built into it for control. Includes the remote control and coax adapter, and is great also for retrofit applications. The same accessories are included, including your remote control, your IR over coax adapter, and your power supply, all set for one TV. If you take a closer look at the Affinity unit, you'll see that you have indicator lights to tell you that if you're on cable TV, or red if you're on a modulated feed. You have your IR power signal status indicator, as well as 2 modulated inputs, 8 television outputs, 2 emitter outputs for control, and your CATV input. So if I'm using this system, how's it going to be a part of my cable system? Think of this cable combiner as the 8-way splitter that your cable provider put in. Remove the splitter that your cable provider put in. And then this will allow you to essentially take place of the 8-way splitter. Now you can utilize each TV leg as an individual television, up to 8 different rooms. So in this application, each room would have the same concept, or each room that wants to see the modulated signal will have my IR over coax adapter, which will tell my cable combiner to switch inputs with this remote control, and then feed that signal to the television's tuner and not the tuner of the cable box. Because your cable box is typically plugged in using HDMI component video, the tuner's not being used. So we're simply modulating our cameras onto channel 65 just like we used to using the television's tuner. We will have a questions section in just a moment, so think of those questions as we're looking at this application. So since we're talking out loud here, if I had 3 televisions that wanted to see my digital cable signal, I would only need to buy 2 additional TV kits, which would be comprised of 2 additional receivers and 2 remote controls, for a total of 3 televisions, because it comes with one already. Now you might be thinking, I could expand this and use it on hotels and condos. We get this call every day. How do I do that? Well, you can expand the P0328 with a simple splitter function. So multiple applications, both residential and commercial, including condos, hotels, motels, anything that has digital cable. The only detail I remind you of is that each room will need a TV kit, an IR receiver, an adapter, and a remote control. So you will have to switch inputs on the television if you're using a cable box, and inputs on the cable combiner switch. So it's a simple one-step solution to be able to view your cameras on the TV. Now, a few things to consider in review of that are how many locations can I expand this cable combiner up to? Well, it's not designed for a 100 condo project, for example. Between 16 and 24 locations are about the maximum amount that you want to distribute this to. Keep in mind, we still have to factor in RF decibel loss as you distribute this throughout your location. However, the P0328 does offer you individual control, so you can offer customized solutions for your customers' needs without interfering with their other programming, and distribute this to 8 different televisions. Some additional things for you to consider when you're designing a system or have a customer with an application where they want to see their cameras on their TVs, the first question you're going to have to ask is, how many sources do they have? How many cameras, or are they feeding this to a DVR? And this question will give you the answer to what modulator to select. Just as a reminder, we select between 1, 2, 3, and 4 inputs, but we can combine up to 8 modulated inputs into the cable signal to the cable combiner. Second question you're going to want to ask your customer is, Mr. Customer, how many locations do you want to see this at? And that will give you your distribution option, whether you're using the single channel with a splitter or the 8 channel, the 8 location individual control cable combiner option. Is it okay to have individual control, or is group switching okay? Is the question to determine P0328 versus 2321. The second question you might want to ask is, how many cable boxes, so that you could determine the right amount of kits that you'll need for their specific application. Now, there are other ways to modulate or to view cameras and video signals on your television or other devices for that matter. For example, you can utilize our IP cameras, connect them to your network, and view them on your automation touchscreen, such as Control 4, your smartphone, or your internet browser, all via your network. If you're looking at the IP camera, since we're on topic here, this does offer HD resolution, varifocal lenses, IR illuminators, and everything that you can imagine. Also being ONVIF compliant and integrated with PoE technology. You can view this directly on your smartphone or utilize the central management software. You can also integrate these cameras with touchscreen automation such as Control 4, Crestron, and Savant. If you're using the analog system and you are using CCTV cameras, don't forget Channel Vision does manufacture a full line of high-performance DVRs, very cost-effective and very feature-rich, including USB ports, dual streaming, dual video outputs, VGAs, and the like, available in 4, 8, and 16 channels. Now, I know there was a lot of stuff in a short amount of time, so just to recap a few things that we talked about before we open the line for questions are some of the fundamentals of modulation. Remember to be using IR and DC passing splitters. Remember that you have to balance a modulated signal before you distribute it, and to use your DC blockers where appropriate. Regarding some of the product specifications as well, you have modulators from 1, 2, 3, and 4 inputs with IR control built into them as well. Utilizing digital modulation is the way to go today for the retrofit applications, or basically to make more money using your existing installs, and combine your camera signals with your digital cable signals. Note I said digital cable signals here. And just remember, depending on what system you're trying to integrate with, whether you're using multiple TVs or single TVs, remember the 4 questions that we wanted to consider before speccing in the specific job of how many sources you have, how many locations really want to see this camera or these modulated signals, am I okay doing individual control or group switching, and how many cable boxes do I have in the applications. Now, if you guys hang tight for a second, I'm going to open the line for some questions. So let me see what our board has to offer us. One question asks, what happens if a system's using a DTA box? We may have touched on this earlier. Just to recap, a DTA box is a digital to analog converter box. And what does that matter, and how does it affect my system? Well, if you're using a DTA converter box, this is a box that means that your customer, it's a box from your cable provider that switches digital or analog to digital so the television can see it you're simply going to use a 3101 little cable box combiner and sidestep that little unit to just go around it, as opposed to using a splitter. So we're not separating it going to a different cable box, because there is no cable box. It's just feeding directly into the TV's tuner, is when you would encounter a DTA box. Here's a question. It says, do you have a matrix that will show attenuation for each of these scenarios? Not quite sure some of the details of that. Let me see if I could get AJ on the line. AJ, can you hear me?
I can.
Now, AJ, I'm trying to answer the question here, but I'm not quite sure I understand the question. Could you elaborate perhaps?
Every time you add a connector in the link, you're going to increase your attenuation. Just like on a fiber system, you have a loss budget. Is there something
Correct.
that would help us figure that out if it's a multiple TV job, to see if we're within acceptable bounds on the attenuation of the signal?
I see what the question is. I do have something to help with that. It's not a shorthand copy, if you will, that you can take with you, but there are some fundamentals that you might be able to utilize by knowing the dB of your modulator or your output. The typical signal coming in from your cable provider is around 10 dB. The splitters each have their own insertion loss, and that's a whole nother section. But we do offer a free system design, which is the best thing that I could really offer you in that application, where you can go to channelvision.com, fill in the blanks, and we'll actually calculate all the insertion loss for you, so that you don't have to worry about that. So the best way I can really answer that is go to channelvision.com, click on the custom panel design system, and we'll be able to fill in the blanks for you.
Good, good. That takes care of it.
Yeah, it takes care of all the guesswork out of it. That's why we're here. A copy of this should be available online shortly thereafter. There's a double question here about the limit of expanding my system. How far can I take this? You can use it up to 24 televisions for using the 8-way cable combiner. Just keep in mind that you're going to be utilizing the 2-way, the IO over coax adapter for each of those TVs as well. Here's a question that says, can I hook up the P0321, that's the one output cable combiner, to a single TV after the main cable television split? This is a very good question, Nate. The way you can design this system is if you really only need to go to one TV, or your customer really only cares about one TV and you don't want them to integrate with or have to deal with splitting or switching all at the same time, you can split that signal after. What I mean by that is that you can split the cable signal into a splitter and then feed the rest of the houses off of one signal. And then the other leg of that splitter would connect to the P0321, the one-way splitter cable combiner, as if it were the digital cable feed coming in. And then that TV would be the only one that would switch. That's a very good question. Hopefully I answered it. How do you choose between modulators? Well, here's a question to ask. How do I choose between the modulator, input 1 or 2, if I have 2 modulated inputs in there? Well, the answer to that question is all of the modulated signals, you won't have a choice to necessarily select between 1 and 2, because once we switch from the cable TV signal to the modulated signal, all of those video signals will be distributed to the television's tuner. The A and B, the mod 1 and 2, are just options for you to expand the modulation inputs so you can have more devices. Does this work with a satellite system such as Dish Network or DirecTV? No. Unfortunately, you may have heard me note that this is for digital cable. This is a very good question. Because of the advances in satellites, we are no longer able to modulate on satellite. Channelvision used to manufacture multi-switches and multiple different options for satellite. However, just in the past 5 years, the satellite multi-switch has changed 3 times, and Channelvision has chosen to bow out of the manufacturing of the multi-switches and leave that to the people that can control that. So unfortunately, if you are using a fiber optic system such as Verizon Fios, if you're using a satellite system such as Dish Network, the Affinity system will not work for you. However, any of the digital cable applications, Comcast, Time Warner Cable, combining an antenna with a digital cable system, any of those applications you can use to integrate with the P0328 or the Affinity Cable Combiner section. Can I modulate high definition through this system is another question I have. No, because we're utilizing RCA inputs on our modulators, we cannot send a high definition signal over the coax. For that, I do apologize. How do I know how many kits I will need for accessories? The answer to that is ask the question of how many locations do you want to see that at. No matter how many places you have or what you're dealing with, that's one of the magical questions is how many locations really want to see this modulated signal or this camera. If the answer is 10, then you'll need 9 of those kits because you know that it comes with one already. So here's a question that asks, so does that mean I can use this with my off-air HD antenna? Yes, that's a good question. You can combine your antenna signal with your digital cable signal, just as if you were utilizing this system the same way, simply plug your cable system into the modulated portion of it through your modulator, and you would be able to switch between inputs on both of those units. Okay, here's a question that asks about the IP cameras. It says, if you cannot modulate high definition, how do you view your IP cameras that have greater than VGA resolution? That's another good question. Using Channelvision's IP cameras, you have 2 options. First of all, I'll add the disclaimer, the purpose of me translating that slide was communicating that there are other ways to view your cameras, not necessarily over the network. Through the network via touchscreens, smartphones, or your computer, and not necessarily on your TV. However, because Channelvision's IP cameras also offer an analog video connection, you would allow you to have a feed piped into your television through the composite video input and be able to be viewed simultaneously remotely through the network, utilizing Channelvision's IP cameras. What do you recommend for a video amplifier, and where would you place it? This answer depends. There's a lot of different applications when you might need an amplifier, and generally speaking, you won't need one if you're looking at a simple residential application in this example. For example, when we looked at that portion about balancing modulation with the cable signal, you can either attenuate the modulated signal or amplify the cable signal. Typically, you want to put your amplifier as far away from the television as possible so that you get the most quality out of your video signal once it arrives at the television. The FCC mandates that your signal be between 8 and 15 dB coming in from your cable provider, so that gives you a good place to start. That's also ideally what your television should have to receive a signal, even though it can produce some images below or above that as well. All very good questions. What is the maximum length of each coaxial run to the location? Again, that's going to depend. You can run 1,000 feet, typically of coax, with 1 volt peak-to-peak power. Now you're going to have a great deal of insertion loss over that, so you will certainly need an amplifier. So I'm going to answer that question with my sales answer of it depends on what your signal's coming in at. What I mean by that is if you have a dB signal coming in at 25, for example, out of your modulator, you might not need an amplifier if you're only running 200 feet. And it also depends on how many splitters are in the applications, so on and so forth. But that's certainly something that we can help with on channelvision.com, where you can fill in the blanks on your cable runs, how long your cable runs are, what's the number of drops you have, how many locations you want to send that to, and that should be able to resolve your questions that way. I do believe, unless anybody has any additional questions, that does cover all of the questions we had. If we were not able to answer your question in the time allotted, don't worry. We'll try to get back to you at a later time. Before you leave, I do have 2 other things to tell you about. For starters, we do offer 24/7 tech support. Give us a call any time of day, and we'll be able to help you with designing your system and making sure that you have the right products you need, or help you troubleshoot a system that is not working as expected. All of our powered products offer 1 year, and all of our passive products are 10-year warranty. We do offer free training, so hopefully nobody charged you to attend today's training. If they did, be sure to ask for a refund. And we do offer that free system design service. Again, channelvision.com. You fill in the blanks. We'll get back to you within 48 hours, whether you need a part list or a full design. That's certainly something that we can help you out. Call any of the sales staff here at Channel Vision, and we'll be glad to help out with that as well. Regarding what kind of training is available during this, just to let you know, Channel Vision does offer free trainings monthly on topics based on your feedback on what you guys want to hear. We do offer trainings available from our distributors. You can contact your distributor for additional information, or we could also facilitate trainings with our distributors. We often work with our partners and our supporting distributors to help inform the customers about what options and training is available to them. There's also training and pre-recorded sessions available on channelvision.com. Under the training portion of the website, you have access to recorded and past webinar trainings as well. And we do offer custom manufacturing if that's something that you're looking to explore. To take it a step further, since you attended today's training, I have something extra special to inform you about, is that now through the end of the year, Channel Vision is giving away a free modulator with the purchase of our digital cable combiner, which means if you purchase a P0328 cable combiner, I'm going to give you a single input modulator. This is the perfect application for a customer that has a DVR. They want to see their cameras on their television and they have digital cable. All you need to do is get the cable combiner, determine some of those questions that we talked about how many locations they want to see the cameras at, and you can give them that. And because of the features in the Channel Vision system, you could even give them control of their DVR. This is free and available through your local distributor. If they're not aware of it 100%, don't worry. It's hard to tell everybody about everything we do nowadays. It is a free promotion. You simply buy the P0328 and get the free modulator free of charge, just listed on the purchase order that way. If you do have any additional questions or anything like that, you can give us a call. If you're looking for some product information, you can download our latest application and solution guide on the website. But please, give us a call at the number on the screen here. We're here 24 hours a day for you. If there's anything that you need, we're here for you. I do apologize. It did take us a little bit over 45 minutes, about 53 minutes. Thank you for your participation. Lots of good questions. I hope I answered all of your questions. We'll do our best to reach out to you afterwards to make sure everything was taken care of and offer you one-on-one for any specific applications you may have. Other than that, thank you for attending. I hope you have a great holiday weekend, and we look forward to seeing you next month back here on our web training when we're talking about our ARIA audio systems for high performance and high profit. Until then, thank you, and we'll see you later.